Okay, so you want to own a golf course. It's one of the great ownership fantasies, and unlike most of them, it's specific. You can picture the exact thing. Early morning, mist still sitting on the fairway, sprinklers going, nobody out there yet. Your land, your grass. And it feels like it should work. Golf is booming. American participation grew 41% between 2019 and 2025, and is closing in on 50 million people. Green grass participation passed 29 million in 2025, the eighth straight year of growth. Rounds played have hit record numbers. Green fees have risen 29% since 2019. More players, more rounds, higher prices. That's about as good as a demand picture gets. So here's the problem. The average 18-hole golf course in the United States spends close to $1 million a year just on maintenance. Not construction, not the clubhouse, not staff in the pro shop or the restaurant, just keeping the grass alive. And that number barely moves. It costs almost the same to maintain a course that hosts 40,000 rounds a year as one that hosts 8,000. The mowing schedule doesn't change. The irrigation doesn't change. The greens still need attention on a Tuesday in February when nobody is playing at all. Which means a golf course is not really a sports business. It is a very large, very expensive garden that happens to sell access, and the bill for that garden arrives whether anyone shows up or not. Once you see it that way, everything else about this industry makes sense. Why membership dues matter more than green fees. Why two courses a few miles apart can have water bills $1 million apart. Why a tiny fraction of golfers carry almost the entire economics of the game. And why, in a country where golf participation is at a near record high, more than 800 courses have closed since 2006. Let's start with the grass, because that's the number everything else has to clear. There isn't one type of golf course. There are 5, and they're different businesses sharing a landscape. The municipal course, owned by a city or county, priced for access rather than profit. Average maintenance budget around $621,000 a year. Often expected to break even at best, and frequently subsidized because the local authority considers it a public amenity rather than a business. It has the lowest prices, the highest round volume, and the least control over its own budget. The daily fee course. Privately owned, open to anyone, no membership required. Maintenance around $557,000, the leanest of the 5. This is the most exposed model, because every single dollar of revenue has to be earned again tomorrow. Nobody owes you anything. The semi-private course, a hybrid, sells memberships but also sells tee times to the public. Maintenance around $567,000. It's trying to capture recurring revenue without turning away walk-up play, and the tension between those two is a permanent operational headache. Members resent the crowding, the public resent the restrictions. The private club, members only. Maintenance around $1,084,000, nearly double a daily fee course, because expectations are higher and conditioning is the product. But it has the one thing the others don't. Dues arrive whether anyone plays or not. Healthy private clubs generate 50 to 60% of total revenue from dues alone. When that figure drops below 40%, the club is considered over-reliant on variable income. The resort or destination course, attached to a hotel, priced for travelers rather than locals. Resort green fees have risen 36% since 2019, and more than half now exceed $100 a round. Each of these is a different answer to one question. How do you cover a fixed maintenance bill? The municipal answer is volume and subsidy. The daily fee answer is volume alone. The semi-private answer is a bit of both. The private answer is recurring dues. The resort answer is price. And the industry is remarkably fragmented. There are roughly 10,100 golf facilities in the United States, generating about $31.5 billion and employing 439,300 people. But the 50 largest firms account for just 19.4% of revenue. This is not a consolidated industry. It's 10,000 small operators, each facing the same arithmetic. So let's look at that arithmetic, starting with what it costs to get in. Most people assume the expensive part is the clubhouse. It isn't. The expensive part is the land, and then the shaping of it. A regulation 18-hole golf course needs roughly 150 acres. That is the first and largest constraint on this entire business, and it's worth pausing on, because 150 acres of land within driving distance of enough people to fill a tee sheet is not a cheap thing to acquire anywhere. Then you build. Estimates for a new 18-hole course run from around $8 million to $40 million, depending on land quality, design complexity, and site conditions. That range is enormous, because the work is genuinely site-specific. You are moving earth, cutting drainage, installing an irrigation network across 150 acres, building greens to specification, and planting the whole thing. Construction typically takes 12 to 24 months of field work, with blended crew rates around $70 to $110 an hour for core teams, and premiums for the specialists, greens builders, irrigation technicians, earth movers. And the surprises are consistent: drainage depth, soil amendments, water rights, stormwater management. These commonly add 5 to 15% to a base budget, and they're the items least likely to appear in an early feasibility number. Then there's the equipment, which is its own capital line and its own recurring problem. A rough mower runs around $100,000, a fairway mower around $80,000, a triplex mower around $50,000, walk mowers around $20,000 each, and a course needs several. Equipment accounts for roughly 10% of an ongoing maintenance budget, between lease costs and repairs, forever. So the entry price is substantial, variable, and heavily front-loaded. But here's the thing that separates a golf course from almost every other business we've looked at on this channel. In most businesses, the build is the hard part, and operations are where you recover. In golf, the build is the easy part to understand. It's a number, you raise it, you spend it, it's done. The difficulty is what happens every single day afterwards, because the grass does not wait. Here is the number this entire business is organized around. The nationwide average maintenance budget for an 18-hole golf course was $999,585 in 2023. Call it $1 million a year, every year, to keep the surface playable. And it is not evenly distributed. In the Southwest, that figure rises to approximately $1.5 million. Maintenance cost per acre runs over $15,000 in the Southwest and around $11,000 in the Southeast. Let's break that million down, because the composition matters more than the total. Labor is 56.74% of it. Not equipment, not chemicals, not water, people. In the Southwest, labor alone accounts for roughly $900,000 of a $1.5 million budget. Public access courses typically run 12 to 18 maintenance staff, including seasonal workers. Private clubs run 18 to 25. And that labor is getting more expensive. Average wages for non-supervisory employees at golf courses and country clubs reached $22.65 an hour in April 2026, up 4.1% year-on-year. Producer inflation for the sector ran 5.9% in May 2026. The rest of the budget breaks down roughly as fertilizer 5.05%, equipment lease 5.01%, repairs and maintenance on equipment 4.56%, fungicides 4.28%, fuel and lubricants 2.65%. Now here is the part that changes how you should think about the whole business. Almost none of that is variable. The grass does not know how many people played yesterday. Greens need mowing whether or not anyone walked on them. Irrigation runs on an agronomic schedule, not a booking schedule. Fungicide applications are preventative. You apply them before the disease, not after the round. The mowing crew arrives at dawn on a wet Tuesday in November when the car park is empty, because if they don't, the course deteriorates and you lose the following season. This is the opposite of almost every business we've covered. A nightclub's biggest cost is the room, but its drinks cost scales with how many people come. A game store's stock is bought against demand. A gym can, at the margin, run fewer classes. A golf course cannot mow less grass because fewer people played, which produces a very specific kind of arithmetic. If your fixed maintenance is $1 million and your average public round in America is around $41, then before you have paid a single person in the pro shop, before the clubhouse, before insurance, before debt service, before the general manager, you need roughly 24,000 rounds a year just to cover the grass. That's about 66 rounds a day, every day, all year, in all weather. And in most of the country, you cannot play in all weather. Now the cost that almost nobody outside the industry understands, and the one that varies more wildly than any other line in the budget. Water. Start with the headline. Roughly 26% of American golf courses buy their water, and for those that do it accounts for about 13% of the maintenance budget. The national average outlay is around $107,000 a year. But that average is close to meaningless, because the variance is extraordinary. In the Southwest, courses spend an average of $238,000 to $266,000 a year on water. And depending on climate, course size, and water source, annual water bills across the industry range from $100,000 to over $1 million. Here is the detail that captures it best. According to the USCA, an annual water budget may differ by $1 million between courses within a few miles of one another. Sit with that. Two golf courses in the same market, competing for the same golfers, charging broadly similar green fees, and one of them has $1 million of extra cost before it opens the gate. Not because it's worse run, because of where its water comes from. That's the thing people miss. Water at a golf course isn't simply a utility bill. It's a function of rights, source, and geology. A course pumping from its own well on site pays for electricity and pump maintenance, historically a very small share of the budget. A course buying treated municipal water pays retail rates for millions of gallons across 150 acres. And even free water isn't free. Pumping from an on-site well can cost tens of thousands of dollars a year in energy alone. Salinity management, pH adjustment, and particulate removal require additional systems and chemicals. Inconsistent pressure damages pumps, valves, and irrigation lines. So when you're buying a golf course, you are not simply buying land, turf, and a clubhouse. You are buying a water position, and that position may be the single largest determinant of whether the business works, regardless of how good the golf is. It also explains something visible from the air: why so much recent course development sits where water is plentiful, and why the Southwest, where golf is most weather reliable and demand is strongest, is simultaneously the hardest place to run one profitably. Which brings us to the revenue side, and a distribution that is genuinely strange. Here's where the naive model breaks. The intuitive picture is a broad base of golfers each paying a moderate amount. 50 million participants, 29 million of them playing on grass, all buying rounds. That is not what the money looks like. Between 7 and 8% of golfers account for approximately 80% of total spending in the game. Read that again, because it reframes everything. The boom is real. Participation genuinely grew 41% in 6 years. But the spending behind it is concentrated in a very small group. The overwhelming majority of that 50 million figure includes people playing at driving ranges and simulator venues, people playing once or twice a year, people who played a corporate scramble and got counted. They are participants. They are not customers. Let's put numbers on the difference. A golfer playing twice a month spends roughly $1,700 to $3,100 a year on rounds. A weekly golfer spends $4,000 to $7,000. And at the top end, a private club member paying dues plus guest fees plus cart fees plus food and beverage plus pro shop spending is well beyond that again. So the business you are actually running is not sell golf to the public. It is identify, attract, and retain the small group of people who play constantly, and build your cost structure around them. This explains a lot of otherwise strange operator behavior. It explains why clubs measure revenue per member rather than dues alone, because dues are only the entry ticket, and total wallet share includes guest fees, merchandise, and food and beverage. Industry analysis notes that in many cases lower dues members outperform higher dues members through consistent guest play and on-property spending. It explains why golf league participation has surged 68% since 2019, and why operators care so much about it. A league is a recurring, scheduled, predictable block of play by exactly the frequent player segment that carries the economics. And it explains the pricing split that has opened up. Resort fees rose 36%, over half now above $100 a round, capturing the destination spender. Meanwhile, average municipal and daily fee rounds sit at $41, up 27%, sustaining volume. Two markets, same sport. One is being priced for the whales. The other is being priced to keep the tee sheet full. And that split leads directly to the single most important structural question in the business. Should you sell memberships or sell rounds? This is not a preference. It's the central financial decision, and it determines your entire risk profile. Start from the members' side, because it explains the pricing. Most memberships break even at around 3 to 4 rounds a month, compared with paying daily fee rates. Below that frequency, pay per round is cheaper. Above it, membership wins. Now flip it to the operator's side, and something important appears. Dues are a financial annuity. They fund operations regardless of weather, regardless of season, regardless of whether a member plays at all. Healthy private clubs generate 50 to 60% of revenue from dues, and when that figure falls below 40%, the club is considered dangerously exposed to variable income. Against a maintenance bill that is itself almost entirely fixed, that matters enormously. Fixed cost matched against fixed revenue is a stable business. Fixed cost matched against variable revenue is a gamble on the weather. And this is where golf quietly resembles the gym. A member who pays dues and plays rarely costs the course almost nothing at the margin. No cart wear, no divots, no congestion at the first tee, no pressure on the tee sheet. Their dues drop almost entirely to contribution. But there's a limit to that comparison, and it's worth being precise. A gym can oversell membership dramatically, because a gym's capacity constraint is soft. A crowded gym is annoying, but functional. A golf course's constraint is hard. There are a fixed number of tee times in a day, daylight is finite, and pace of play collapses if you overbook. You cannot sell 4,000 memberships against an 18-hole course. So the golf operator is solving a narrower problem than the gym operator. They need enough members to cover a fixed million, without so many that the product degrades and the members who carry 80% of the spending leave for somewhere less crowded. That's a tight window. And when it's missed, the failure is slow and visible. Here's the striking thing about golf course failure. It has happened at enormous scale during a participation boom. More than 800 golf courses have closed in the United States since 2006. The year 2006 was the first in which closures exceeded openings, and over the following 2 decades, the country saw a cumulative 13% reduction in courses. Meanwhile, participation is at a near-record high, and rounds played are at record numbers. Both of those things are true at once, and the reason is the arithmetic we started with. Demand for golf and viability of a golf course are different questions. A course does not close because nobody wants to play. It closes because the number of people willing to play there, at the price it needs to charge, no longer clears a fixed $1 million maintenance bill. The market has since stabilized. Closures have fallen to their lowest count since 2004, and at the start of 2026, the National Golf Foundation counted more than 140 new courses in planning or under construction. But look closely at what's being built. The NGF notes that the majority of those projects come from a specific and well-endowed segment: private destination clubs, high-end real estate communities, and resort properties. That is not a broad-based recovery. That is capital flowing to the top of the market, to exactly the businesses that serve the 7 to 8% who generate 80% of the spending. Nobody is building municipal courses. And the geography is uneven too. Development is concentrated, not distributed. So the picture is a barbell. Premium destination golf is expanding and pricing aggressively. Value-oriented public golf is sustaining volume at $41 a round. And the middle, the ordinary semi-private course in an ordinary market with an ordinary water bill, is where the pressure sits. Which raises the question that hangs over this entire industry, and it isn't about golf at all. If the course doesn't clear its million, what is the land worth? This is the part that reframes the whole business. A regulation golf course sits on roughly 150 acres. In a lot of the country, that is unremarkable. But in a supply-constrained market, a coastal metro, an infill suburb, anywhere with a housing shortage and no developable land, 150 contiguous acres with existing road access, drainage, and utilities is close to the rarest asset there is. And developers have noticed. Shuttered and struggling courses are actively targeted as infill housing opportunities, precisely because they sit close to jobs, schools, and existing infrastructure. 2 live examples, both from 2026. Desert Pines Golf Club in Las Vegas closed in July 2026 after 30 years of operation. The city plans more than 1,000 housing units on the site, along with educational services, as part of a wider East Las Vegas plan. Oak Creek Golf Club in Irvine, California, a 193-acre public course, is the subject of a proposal to build around 3,100 homes. In March 2026, the city's planning commission voted 7-0 to recommend a zoning change. The site carries a 1988 open space protection, which remains the central legal and political fight. That fight is the norm rather than the exception. Homeowners who paid a premium for a fairway view resist redevelopment, on the reasonable assumption that losing the open space will damage their property values. And here is the genuinely counterintuitive finding. Research by John Burns. Research and Consulting analyzed home values around 8 redeveloped golf courses in South Florida, before redevelopment and after new construction began. Their conclusion: older homes near run-down or shuttered courses no longer receive a golf course premium, and actually increase in value when the derelict course is converted into new homes. The premium was never the grass. It was the maintained, attractive open space. A dead course delivers none of that, and a well-built new neighborhood delivers more, which produces the underlying structural fact of this industry. And it isn't a scandal, it's just how the value is arranged. A golf course is 150 acres of land with a very expensive maintenance obligation attached to it. For as long as the golf clears the bill, it's a golf business. The moment it stops clearing the bill, the asset reverts to what it always was underneath: land. And land in the right place doesn't need anyone to play on it at all. That's why the buyer list for a struggling club includes housing developers, leisure operators, private equity consolidators, and investors looking to reposition. They are not all buying the same thing. Some are buying a golf course, some are buying acreage. Now let's put the whole year together. Here's the engine in plain mechanical terms. Take a mid-market semi-private course. Maintenance at the sector average, call it $1 million a year. Then add everything maintenance doesn't cover: clubhouse staff, pro shop, food and beverage costs, insurance, property tax, marketing, management, debt service. For a course of this size, total operating cost comfortably clears $1.6 million before profit. Now revenue. Say 400 members paying $3,000 a year in dues. That's $1.2 million. The annuity, arriving regardless of weather. Add public play. 15,000 rounds at an average realized rate of $45. Note realized, not rack rate, because discounting is universal, and the industry's own benchmark warns that if average revenue per round falls below 60% of your highest posted rate, discounting is eroding profitability. That's $675,000. Add carts, pro shop, food and beverage, lessons and events. On a course this size, call it $500,000 of ancillary revenue at mixed margin. So gross revenue lands around $2.4 million, which sits reasonably against the industry figure that the average American golf facility generates roughly $3.5 million annually and employs about 49 people. Against $1.6 million of operating cost, that's a workable business. Not a spectacular one, but real. Now the realistic version, and none of these are exotic. A drought year, and the water bill moves by $200,000. A wet spring costs you 6 weekends of play in the highest margin months. 2 of your largest equipment items come up for replacement in the same year. A rough mower and a fairway mower is $180,000. Labor costs rise 4%, which on a maintenance budget that is 57% labor is another $23,000. And membership drifts down by 40 people, which is $120,000 of pure annuity gone. None of those is a disaster. Any two together move a modest operating margin to 0. And the course looks exactly the same throughout. The grass is still green, because you kept mowing it, you had to. That's the whole point. The one cost you cannot cut is the one that makes the place look like it's fine. So if you do buy one, here's the thing worth holding on to. Golf is a rare business in which the product and the asset are almost completely separate. The product is a round of golf, sold for $41, in weather you don't control, to a customer base where a small fraction carries the economics. The asset is 150 acres of land. For as long as the product clears the maintenance bill, they stay bolted together. When it doesn't, they come apart, and the asset is worth what land is worth, regardless of what happened on top of it. That's not a scandal. Nobody builds a golf course as a land bank. The ones that get redeveloped are overwhelmingly ones that stopped working as golf first. But it explains why this industry behaves the way it does. Why capital flows to destination clubs and real estate communities rather than municipal courses. Why the fight over a closing course is always a zoning fight. And why 800 courses could close in a country where more people are playing golf than at almost any point in its history. The real question was never whether people want to play. Nearly 30 million of them do. It's whether enough of them want to play here, often enough, at a price that clears $1 million of grass.